at the very beginning and at the very end, two of the most incredibly iconic moments in movies, full stop.
The poor dope. He always wanted a pool.
So much of this movie is surreal, and I feel like when you're stepping into that house, you're stepping into another world.
They took the idols and smashed them. The Fairbankses, the Gilberts, the Valentinos. And who we got now?
There's literally like a new Hollywood director like from the 70s that like every time Marvel drops a movie, one of them has to make pretty much that comment.
I am big. It's the pictures that got small.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the CineFix Top 100, the show where we don't even know how this list got made, but damn it, we're going to talk about these movies. I'm Clint Gage, joined by IGN's Director of Video Programming and a frequent CineFix guy, Michael Calabro. How you doing?
Yo, Clint, what's good, man?
Plenty.
I'm excited for this
Several
episode.
movies, at least.
I'm excited for this
At least
episode.
100 movies, from what I understand. Also, IGN Senior News Editor and still a mega fan of Terminator 2?
I never waver. Yeah.
Alex Stedman, never wavering from her Terminator 2 fandom.
So true.
We'll see how many episodes in a row I can get away with introducing you like that.
I won't argue it. I won't stop you. Yeah.
All 100.
Yeah.
So this is the third episode of Top 100, and we all really worked hard on our personal top 100 list. Our producer Dan just kind of he listed the first 100 movies he could think of.
Yeah.
It took him about 17 minutes. Then he smashed up all of those four lists together to make the CineFix Top 100, and he's making us talk about them one at a time. This week, we're talking about Sunset Boulevard.
It's a classic.
Going all the way back to 1950.
Yeah.
73-year-old movie?
Is that where we're don't date this video. People might be watching this years from now and be
70
very
They'll
years
never
from
look
now?
at the date. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. 140-ish years ago,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
YouTube will still be around by then, right? So Sunset Boulevard, like I said, 1950, Billy Wilder, who, by the way, Billy Wilder, we can talk more about him later, but I mean, this guy's an all-timer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he did so much great work back in the 40s and 50s. But Sunset Boulevard, it's about a struggling screenwriter who crosses paths with a fading starlet, from the silent era of film. And the relationship that they sort of form and the weird story that they begin to tell together just goes to the weirdest places throughout the course of this film. It's also kind of, to me, it strikes me as a film that's sort of about discovering how crazy people are, but like gradually.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you do right off the bat figure out that she's a little nutty.
So it stars
monkey.
Gloria Swanson and William Holden are the two leads. And like I said, Billy Wilder again. But just to jump straight into the pedigree of this film, I mean, it's one of the all-time great films, right?
And I think it is, like you said, Billy Wilder is a vet, and so he knows the way Hollywood is. And I feel like that's one of the great things about this movie. This is the worst part of Hollywood, one of them, you know, and he gets it.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, like Sunset Boulevard is one of those movies that I watched it in college and have not again. And revisiting it now, like 20 years on, I'm like, oh my God, this movie's incredible.
Literally, I have the same exact story. I watched it in college 10 years ago, and I kind of forgot about it. And now I'm like, oh God, wait, no, I love this movie. Like, it's so tightly written. It's so right about Hollywood. It's so well, like, I really love this movie, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think I loved it as much as I do.
Dude, I think this movie's even more relevant now than it was. Like, you know, like the older it gets, the more relevant it maintains itself. There's like so many quotes that we're gonna talk about here that you could just like use today, and they just totally fit.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, like, I remember I watch this movie every couple of years, but the last time I watched it before the viewing for this, this was the first movie I watched when I moved to LA, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go with my LA movie kid.
Yeah.
It's such an LA movie. Like, I just moved to LA movie
Sunset
too.
Boulevard.
Yeah.
Collateral.
Yeah.
Heat.
I literally had a class in college where we watched LA movies, and we watched we watched this basically.
Right.
Yeah.
We just was Sunset Boulevard over and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things. So, I mean, the movie again, like what it's about, like what I find incredible about this movie, and talking about why it's still relevant. Like, it was made in 1950, and Hollywood is 25, 30 years old. Hollywood proper.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that old at this point. And in 1950, here's a movie that's about a star who's been sort of chewed up and spit out.
Yeah.
And it's about a screenwriter that's struggling but still dedicated to the industry and just trying to make it and giving up on like other opportunities that he had so that he can be like, I mean, the movie opens with him, or it doesn't open, but like when we first meet him, he is like running away from repo men that are coming to get his car. But he's like, you know what? This is the game. Like, I'm a writer. This is what I'm going to do. And so there's that like that dedication to the idea of Hollywood and stardom and success in the business that has never gone away. Like that's still a very relatable thing. And here's a movie from 1950 that's already about like, oh God, this industry sucks.
Oh, it holds. It not only does it hold up, I think it's so relevant now.
Yeah.
Like it's possibly more. You have more struggling writers now than you did then, and honestly, it hasn't gotten much better towards aging actresses either.
No.
So.
No, but that was even the great thing about this. So Gloria Swanson, who plays the character Norma Desmond in the movie, like the meta narrative of this movie is it's the same story.
Yeah.
Right. It's more or less the same story. Like she was an enormous silent film star. Like, and then she was broke around the time that she made this movie.
Yeah.
Like I mean, there were a handful of reasons for that. It wasn't necessarily because Hollywood was done with her. It was like she started production companies and lost a bunch of money and blah, 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 all that stuff.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No,
I was just to say one of the great jokes of the film is when she says like, there wouldn't be a Paramount Pictures without me. And that is a line of like Norma Desmond, but also Gloria Swanson, who did a lot of work for the studio back in the day.
Yeah. And worked with Cecille B. DeMille back in the day as well, who plays himself in this movie. It's
fantastic little addition.
Yeah, it's such a and there's appearance. Buster Keaton shows up, and a couple other older silent film stars make cameos and things like that. And so I'm trying to think of a movie that recently has done the same thing, where like people show up. I mean, I guess you see things like Tropic Thunder or like Adaptation or movies like that are about the business in a way that. Real business people show up, actual filmmakers play themselves in the
Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent wasn't about so much Hollywood, but it did have,
that's a good example because that's got that extra layer of meta, like what's going on with Nick Cage kind of commentary.
Like Swimming with Sharks too, which is like where Spacey plays that real terrible studio executive.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's so at the time though, everybody loved it though, because it won a bunch of Academy Awards.
No, it only won 2.
It only won 2?
What did it win?
I have it written down here. It won. I'm sorry. It
was
won
picture.
It won 3. It was not picture.
It was not picture.
It was screenplay.
I hope it was
the
acting,
the long storied history of the Academy giving the best movie the screenplay.
The screenplay.
Yeah. Art direction and score.
Okay.
It was nominated
not for Gloria Swanson.
Nope.
What?
It was nominated for picture, director. All the actors, all the acting noms were all nominated, editing and editing. I don't know why I have editing twice.
Both editing.
Because it was so nominated.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of nominations.
That's a bunch of nominations.
Yeah, Gloria Swanson should have won. Jeez.
Yeah.
She makes that movie. I mean, come on.
Yeah, William Holden William Holden is interesting because my first experience with William Holden was The Wild Bunch. And so seeing him in like these sort of younger romantic roles, it just never added up to me.
Yeah. Well, that's funny,
the first time I ever saw William Holden in anything. Like he's killing 65 people in The Wild Bunch.
Yeah.
I always get him confused with Joseph Cotten.
Yeah.
Which is like another actor at that time. But like, in future episodes, we'll get into my disdain for the Western genre, so I don't have.
What?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
we'll see if they ended it like that'll have to be a real quirk of the algorithm to get a Western on there if you actually hate them.
I'm torpedoing them all.
Yeah,
so.
right.
Yeah.
Might as well get your Holden Wild Bunch talking.
This is the only time we'll be able to talk about the Wild Bunch.
Yeah, but I totally buy him as a romantic lead though. Like he has like 2 romantic interests in this movie, and I think I buy it.
They're just every woman that appears in the movie falls in love with William
There's like
Holden.
a great shot of him like coming out of the pool with his shirt off, looking like he's like such like a star, not a starlet.
He's a total himbo.
He's a himbo.
Yeah. He's a not talented writer. That's the funny thing too. Is like there's no
as good as his mind thinks.
Exactly. That is a really great thing about the film too. This film sort of famously opens on William Holden dead in a pool. And then William Holden proceeds to narrate the rest of the movie, which is like a really great film noir trope that I enjoy, is giving an excuse for the VO.
Mm-hmm.
He did it in Wilder did it in Double Indemnity too.
Yep.
Like that movie opens with a guy like gut shot wandering in and like picking up his tape recorder to
talking to keys.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you have like the added tragedy of him not being able to tell like the best story he's ever told until he's dead.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But he's a bad writer.
Yeah.
He's not a good writer.
No.
And every piece of evidence we see of William Holden, the writer, or I'm sorry, what's his character's name? So I can get this right. Joe Gillis.
Joe Gillis.
So
Joe.
every Joe Gillis screenplay that gets talked about or shown or any of it is bad and nobody likes it. And that to me is hilarious. There's no great story lurking within Joe Gillis.
No.
He's just a guy desperate to make it in the business, and he's probably not going to hack it.
And maybe the story he was working on with what's her name?
So that's another one of the subplots. Is he's in there, he's desperate, he's pitching a Paramount executive on some idea that he has
baseball
about
batter up, right?
Yeah. It's a baseball movie, and then the executives, one of the script readers, is a woman that works there. What's her name? Betty Schaefer. Yeah. Betty.
Is that not a Mad Men character? Betty Schaefer?
Betty
like
Schaefer?
that's the exact name. Is it not?
No, Betty Draper.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Close enough.
I'm sure there was a Betty Schaefer on set somewhere.
Yeah.
But Betty walks in and starts tearing apart the guy's script without knowing that he was the one that wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really funny, and she doesn't back down at all. Like she's just like, no, yeah.
One of the better exchanges in that, where she's just like, I just think your pictures should say a little something. And he's just like, oh, one of the message kids.
Yeah.
Just a story won't do.
Your story means nothing, sir. That's a problem. I know, and I love how like accurate those script notes are too. Like
right.
Yeah. Oh, so good.
Yeah. No, even the way that she was dressing down his bad script was accurate to the way people tear apart bad scripts.
Yeah.
But it was great.
Another thing about him being a bad writer, though, it really shows where Norma's priorities are, because she doesn't know anything about his talent or credentials.
Yep.
She just kind of thinks he's hot, I feel like. And it's like, oh, this is my little boy toy now.
Yeah. And I mean, can we talk about how they join forces?
One of my favorite scenes in the movie.
It's so truly bizarre. First of all, he's on the run from Repo Men. Like he just happens to be driving around
tire.
and he gets a tire pops and he like hides in her garage. And it's like he's driving into like the, secret garden or something like that. Like it's a completely separate world that he sort of stumbles into, and he parks in her garage. And then he gets mistaken for a
Undertaker.
Monkey Undertaker.
Yeah. Because her previous companion, a monkey, has just passed, and they need to bury.
And it's a great scene because right off the bat, he knows she's bonkers. We know she's bonkers.
There's something great about it though, because like we started this conversation about Sunset Boulevard with like, this is one of the greatest movies of all time, right? And then a few minutes later we're like, and then he gets mistaken for a monkey Undertaker. And the fact that it works and it all tracks is.
Real question. You think there was like film textbooks written at this time?
Gosh, I don't know.
No, I really don't think so.
Yeah.
Like they would probably be coming in like the next decade, right? Because like a lot of my notes here are just like how I can't think of a better term to describe like a lot of the camera blocking and coverage and stuff like that than like textbook.
Right.
And like that monkey funeral is probably like one of the most textbook examples of like how incredible it is to cover it, because like they mistake him as the monkey Undertaker, right? And then like she convinces him to stay, so he's actually staying in the room above the attic. And you watch the monkey burial from the perspective of Joe Gillis, so it's just like looking down on them at night as like Max, her butler, who is her former husband, and we'll get into that. We'll get into that later. Like have him just like Paul burying this child's casket that actually is holding a monkey as they like bury it in the backyard, and it's a great shot. It's so surreal. It's amazing.
I mean, so much of this movie is surreal, and I feel like like you said, like when you're stepping into that house, you're stepping into another world.
Right. I mean, the surrealism of it is another funny. I mean, knowing that Billy Wilder came up doing some silent work himself, and Gloria Swanson, her story is sort of represented on screen also, and then to treat it with that touch of surrealism and like that, just that sort of just naked bonkersness, right? Like I don't know how else to describe it. Like they're like, I feel like at every turn, every time we learn something new about Norma Desmond, Gloria Swanson's character, it's just crazier than The Last Thing.
Yeah.
This is as like 0 to 100 as the Hays Code could possibly go.
Right.
Yeah, but you also it also gives you some insight into Max, who we'll discuss more later. But like the fact that he's just on board, like not questioning this, like you're the monkey undertaker.
Well, we can
having
discuss
a monkey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But like Max is like the biggest ride or die in the world.
Yeah.
Like. And I think, like, right off the bat, you get, like, oh, he's going to indulge every one of this woman's weirdest impulses at whatever cost.
Yeah.
Including having a monkey funeral.
You're not properly dressed for the occasion.
What's the occasion?
Have him come up, Max.
Up the stairs.
Suppose you listen to me for just a minute.
Madame is waiting.
For me? Okay.
In terms of other movies from this era, did you guys put any more on your list? How many 40s and 50s movies do you guys have on your list?
I don't think I have any.
I got a couple.
You got a couple?
Yeah.
I have a few. I have a few film noirs. And nothing else by Billy Wilder though.
Oh, I got Double.
Which
I got Double Indemnity.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll maybe get to talk about that down the road, depending
Probably
on how
not.
high you have it up.
Probably not, considering
Did you have it up 15th, like
No.
Independence Day?
No.
No, my list is pretty recent. Like mostly within the past 30 years, I would say on my list. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, in terms of like how like prestige or popcorn this movie was, obviously now we're looking back on it. It nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards, won a couple, and then 70 years on, we're still talking about it, and it's still a great movie. But like it did some business. Like it was, the budget at the time was $1.75 million to make, and it made $5 million. It brought $5 million back, which adjusted for inflation is a $22 million to make 64. Like that'll get you a sequel.
Yeah, that will get you a sequel.
In
Yeah.
the 80s.
Or if you're John Wick.
Yeah.
Masterpiece?
Yeah.
Without question.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say it. Yeah.
Okay.
Like there's just so little that's wrong with this movie. Like it's so tightly written, it's so well acted, it's so well shot. Like I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean it breaks all the rules too, right? Like so like this did VO so well that then VO was like a subsequent trope that Charlie Kaufman has to like rail on when he also does VO in adaptation.
Yeah.
Like you think about like VO movies that really stand out. It's like this, Fight Club, Taxi Driver. What else? What else we got that does it?
I mean, every film noir.
Yeah.
Just about.
But none of them do it this well.
No. Well, and none of them like establish the fact that your VO is from a dead guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think there was It's a Wonderful Life had a little bit from an angel or something, but not really. Like this was I mean, establishing from the very first scene of the movie that a dead guy is going to be talking you through the rest of this film.
You see, the body of a young man was found floating in the pool of her mansion, with 2 shots in his back and 1 in his stomach. Nobody important, really. Just a movie writer with a couple of B pictures to his credit. The poor dope. He always wanted a pool.
Do we want to get into some of these best VO lines now, or do we want to get into them later?
I mean, we're talking about the VO lines. Let's talk. I mean, listen. Let's call this the brilliant moments section here. So brilliant moments. We're talking about these are the moments in this movie that really shine. It's the VO for you.
Oh yeah. I mean, Norma Desmond has her own lines, but like as far as like a brilliant moment is concerned, it is definitely the VO. You got to remember, right? This is written by Billy Wilder, German guy. English is his second language, and he still wrote VO like this tight.
Yeah.
For example, like when he's talking about how he hid his car from the repo man, right? He's like, I always kept it across the street in the parking lot behind Rudy's shoe shine parlor. Rudy never asked any questions about your finances. He'd just look at your heels and know the score. Like
the shoe shine guy has the total size.
And I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like I'm a huge, I like noirs, right? And I like Naked Gun. And like, if you've ever watched Police Squad, like there is the character who's the shoe shine guy that Leslie Nielsen goes to get info on like the cases. And it's just like, I always just think of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's great too, because, and to your point about Billy Wilder and English being his second language, like the idea for him to love like a clever turn of phrase, there is no better vehicle for quips like that than film noir VO.
Oh yeah.
And so for him to, like, it was like his kink, I would imagine. Like,
Then I talked to a couple of yes men at Metro. They told me no.
it's great. Like
so
how
simple. It's so straight to the point. Like,
and how on the nose is that to say like this guy, I'm down and out. I got nothing. Yes men are telling me no.
Yeah.
You know, like it's incredible.
Even the way he describes the house, right? Like he was just like, here was a tennis court, or rather the ghost of a tennis court.
Yeah. So dramatic. And it's so obvious he's a writer trying to be a really good writer, but he's not.
It's like it's laid to the page. It's in character too. It's like that's how the VO is in keeping with a bad writer's character.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. The thing is, we just talked about it to death, but one of my favorite scenes is that opening scene, and one of my favorite lines is that I'm still big, the pictures got smaller. Like it's so establishing of her character. Like she thinks so highly of herself. She's so delusional, and I love that about her. But like, no, I love that line. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting though too, because those two characters are, you know, that line in particular, the I am big but the pictures got small.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the same energy that Joe Gillis has about like, no, I'm a writer and I'm gonna be a writer, and that's all there is to it, regardless of how I can't pay my you know, my bills or my rent or the repo men are knocking up at my door, and like, so for them to have that much in common, and also for him to be so disdainful of her for it is another part of this industry that it's so fascinating. In 1950, that they were already very aware of, just like, there is a stupid double standard here of people who, like, looking at people that are judged to be past their prime. Right. And it's like the people that are still in it, that is like, Joe Gillis is not successful by any metric whatsoever. But this lady who was enormously successful and is just old now, like, that's pathetic.
Well, and that's why I almost get like a little defensive of her too, because like, she's not a good person by any means, but like what the industry has done to her is actually really crappy, and the way that Joe initially treats her is actually really crappy. And it's like, you know, I don't feel that bad for him by the end of the movie.
No, I don't think you're supposed to.
Yeah. No, it's...
You're not supposed to feel bad for anybody.
Well, that's the thing. Everyone's pretty despicable.
I mean, except for
DeMille.
For Betty, maybe.
Yeah, Betty's pretty innocent.
DeMille's fine. He gets to keep making his movie. He's gonna go home that night and feel bad about it, and then come back and not remember.
But he spared her feelings. Like he was trying,
he's like, go find a different car.
To be a good guy, you know. Yeah.
Honestly, this is gonna be my brilliant moment. Is that whole sequence where she actually goes to the lot, right? Yeah. And like, so we don't know why they've been called back there. We just know that, like, Paramount's been calling and, oh, they want me back and they want my picture. And but really they just accidentally saw the old car that she was driving, and they want to use the car as a prop car in one of their movies. And that's why they've been trying to get a hold of her.
And you feel so bad for her.
And Max, Butler ex-husband, we'll get there. Have we gotten there yet?
No, we haven't.
We haven't explained that yet. Okay, that's fine. We'll hold that for later. But Max has kept that from her. Max is allowing her to believe that they want it back. He knows full well what they're looking for. Yeah. And so now that we know that, watching Norma Desmond walk into that situation just full of confidence and feeling so good about herself to go back onto the lot and to meet Cecille B. DeMille, like, it's so tragic and it's so horrible. And this very specific brilliant moment is there's the gaffer up in the rafters that recognizes her, swings the spotlight down on her. And that's cool to begin with. And everybody kind of swarms around. They're like, oh, Norma Desmond. Oh, wow. Hey, it's great to meet you. And she's got her adoring fans or whatever. But the real brilliant moment is when Cecille B. DeMille is walking back over to her, and the crowd kind of parts, and there's a light. The light is still hitting her. And it is the most unnatural light, even for a stage. Like, that light does not exist on the stage, except to shine onto her for this specific shot. Like, the texture of the light is different than anything that's pointed at the set. So it's not like a practical thing that was actually there. But when Cecil B. DeMille walks over and he's like, get that light out of here, or put that light back where it belongs, I think is what he says. Which and that line right there is a beautiful shot, like tracking up towards her with this incredible light. Get that light back where it belongs. And it's Cecil B. DeMille saying that, who is honestly one of the more sympathetic people in the whole movie.
I think so, yeah.
And he's still like, nope, This is not happening.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, it obviously there's a mirror to that scene and the end of the movie. And I like that both of those things are kind of set up by Max lying to her to spare her feelings.
Yeah.
So Max did her, and which is really doing her a disservice because she's humiliated on the lot, and then I have less of a problem with it at the end because at that point, you know,
she's
she's already going to jail. Might as well let her enjoy it. But no, but it's such an interesting
she plugged
mirror.
Joe Gillis.
She already but no, it's such an interesting mirror that I really appreciate about that scene.
I just want to talk about some of the blocking of the shots like that.
Too.
Right?
I'm glad you bring that up too, because this is an era of filmmaking where there weren't a lot of tricks to be had except for how you stage.
Yeah, because it's like the thing we study now, right?
Yeah.
So like they got so much mileage out of that staircase in their foyer, right? So like the opening, like just like when she comes in, right? So it's just like she's standing at the top of the stairs. She's like, "So you're a writer," and it's looking up at her from Joe Gillis's perspective, like where she has all the visual screen power and stuff like that, right? And then he's like, "Yeah, I've like written a couple of pictures," and then she comes down to meet him at eye level to be like, will you read my script? And it's like that kind of power play. They do the same thing later on in the movie where it's the New Year's Eve party, and
the New Year's Eve party,
the New Year's Eve party at 2 where she rents a 4-piece orchestra, like a 4-piece string band, and they're
just
like,
for the two of them.
Yeah, they're like tangoing in that like black void of emptiness, and you're just like staring down at them by themselves as they
It's such
dance.
an uncomfortable scene
It's
too.
so good. It's like that house is such like a fun house. It's wild.
I mean, thinking about this movie like a horror film is kind of an interesting exercise too, because like I feel like this is I mean, there are shades of this kind of thing in I mean, little indie things like Creep, you know, these movies where like somebody shows up and meets somebody new, and they go into this person's world, and then they're like, oh God, I'm trapped here. Like there's a version of this movie that, you know, obviously it ends with him getting killed.
Yeah.
So like it, you know, but that fun house kind of like you keep getting to another layer of like the monkey Undertaker was weird enough.
Yeah.
And then like now you threw a New Year's Eve party, and he walks downstairs. He's like, when's everybody else getting here? And he's like, oh, nobody's coming. It's just us. And it's like, Jesus.
Which wasn't even a huge shock to me when I was watching it, but it's still like, oh God.
No,
like,
it's so painful.
Yeah. But no, I kind of thought of it as partially a horror movie. Like, and you have things like her saying like, I got a gun. And you're like, ooh, that's not going away. Like that's going to come back. Like,
yeah.
Do you know what the most like now having lived in Los Angeles for a couple of years, you know what I think is like the most LA thing about that movie now?
What?
The scene where they go clothes shopping and the guy's like, well, we got like this fancy kind of overcoat, and we got the camel and the camel hair, and he's just like, she's paying. Just get the expense.
I think the line was actually, because I made a note of that too. That was one of my favorite moments of like, that was the kind of, there's a couple of moments in the movie that are clearly like, they're cut in
peak
a way
himbo.
that, what's that?
It's a peak himbo moment.
Yeah, well, but they're also cut in a way that's like holding for laughs, in a way that doesn't match the rest of the movie.
Right.
Here's some camel's hair, but I'd like you just to feel this. It's vicuna. Of course, it's a little more expensive.
The camel's hair will do.
Well, as long as the lady's paying for it, why not take the vicuna?
We're talking about weird shit, right? Like, it's time to get to Max.
We should probably get to Max.
I have to. Max is my biggest question mark.
Honestly, this is another brilliant moment because this reveal is really, really incredible. So Max, we've been referring to him as the butler ex-husband this whole time, but it's, you know,
he's the butler for like 2/3 of the movie.
He's the butler for most of the movie, and then at some point, it starts to look real bad for Norma Desmond, and he gets so concerned about it. He spent the whole movie like keeping things from her and letting her believe that she's still a big star and everybody still wants to work with her. And then all of a sudden, things are starting to look bad for her, and so he's worried enough about her that he opens up to Joe and admits that he used to be a director, and he directed Norma Desmond. Then they got married, and now he's her butler.
And now they're also divorced.
And they're also divorced.
Still there.
And he's still there. And there have been other husbands.
Yeah, she's had 3 husbands.
And now this boy toy.
So it's Max the director, Max the disgraced director after Norma Desmond got through with him, I think.
Yeah.
but then they got married, then they got divorced, then he's her butler, then there are like 3 other husbands, and now there's Joe who's just sleeping in his old bed.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, can we talk about how that all goes down, right? I'm pretty sure that all happens in the same scene, and that is like, it's the scene where he gets to like move into the house, and he's just like, why isn't there any door handles? And it's like, oh, because she's suicidal, and because she's suicidal. And in the same scene, he's like, yeah, this is a nice bedroom, and she's just like,
It used to be mine.
It's like, no, he didn't say that. He was like, it used to be like the husband's
This
bedroom.
is for the husband.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then like later on in that scene, it's just like, well, I was also her husband. You're just like,
And talking about like,
but when they do that though, that's the moment that's great. When they do that, it's like a gung 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 kind of moment. Like there's a sting in the score, and I think there's a camera move. Like
I literally gasped. I watched that like I said, I watched it in college, and me and 6 other students were literally like, like it was like such a big reveal. It was huge. But like the thing is, like Max is such an interesting character, and they never really go back to it after that reveal. Like, okay, so you understand why he cares so much about her, but I'm still really curious as to like why he's okay with watching her get married 2 other times and watching these men come in and out of her
and driving them around
and sleeping in his old bed and like getting his clothes from his apartment. Like Max has as many screws loose as Norma does in my mind.
And more probably because I don't think anything was actively done to Max. Right? Like
he just watched stuff happen to Norma.
Norma as a character had been put through the ringer.
Right.
Like she'd been sort of chewed up and spit out by the system in Hollywood and everything like that. Max just kind of watched it happen.
I mean, he kind of was like chewed up and spit out by Hollywood as like a disgraced director, but still like not nearly as much as she was.
Do you know who the person that didn't screw over Norma Desmond was? Her financial planner.
Like, she's still really rich.
When they're like, there's like that scene where they're talking about like why, like, oh, whatever you want, we can buy. I got oil fields and Bakerfield. They just pump and pump and pump, so we can spend and spend and spend. It's like, yeah, maybe Max is sticking around because, like, you know, the gravy train.
Well, that's he explains it at the end. He's like, well, I got a pretty good setup. And it's like, yeah, you kind of do,
It's the same deal as Joe. Like, it's the same reason Joe is sticking around. Like, he sort of, like, begrudgingly realizes he's like, well, I'm a kept man now.
Yep.
But yeah, that is the one part of the meta narrative between Norma Desmond and Gloria Swanson that doesn't line up. Yeah. Like Gloria Swanson got some bad business, hosed in some bad business deals, I think. Yeah. But yeah, the fact that because I kept waiting for that shoe to drop, right? Yeah. I kept waiting for the money to run out, or like, you know, something.
But that's never even hinted at.
No, because I guess it wasn't.
Yeah,
but like, cool. But again, like looping all of that in together into this movie, like adding it all up into a movie about how screwed up the business is. Mm-hmm. Like, here's a person that, you know, there would be no Paramount Pictures without me, and she's incredibly wealthy, and nobody wants anything to do with her. Mm-hmm. And it's just so bizarre.
And don't forget, like the meta narrative too, right? Of like how like the system's gonna profit off of her downfall too, right? It's like tabloid. Yeah. All those cameras are there. Like, she's ready for her final close up, because that's gonna be on friggin' newsreels. It's gonna be on the tabloids. Like,
and that was another one of the cameos too. It was like a real life gossip columnist played. What's her name? That she was on the phone there at the end, being like, hold the print. I've got a story, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. But it's like, and the funny thing is, and we talked a little bit about this with like the way that Joe immediately dismissed her. It's like, well, she actually made a name for herself in Hollywood. Like, you have it, my guy. Like, you barely are getting by, and she was a big star. And, you know, like, she basically was just thrown out because she aged.
Yeah. Like, they're both done. The business is done with both of them, and neither of them want to believe it.
Yeah.
But like, somehow Joe thinks he's like above it somehow, I guess.
I mean, I'm not saying that doesn't exist in Hollywood. There's still a lot of that in Hollywood.
No, yeah, for sure. No, and that's why the movie, like, you could take the same script and swap out, like, you know, we were talking about, you swap out the what happened to Fairbanks with what happened to Scorsese, and you can make the same thing right now. Like, it's a conversation that still happens.
Oh, I got the quote right here. You want me to read it?
Yeah, you got all the quotes. You just
Yeah,
have the script pulled up.
They took the idols and smashed them. The Fairbankses, the Gilberts, the Valentinos, and what do we got now? Some nobodies. There is literally like a new Hollywood director like from the 70s that like every time Marvel drops a movie, one of them has to make that pretty much that comment.
It's De Palma's turn next, I think, because Spielberg, Scorsese, Coppola, they've all had their turn. Going like, we got a bunch of nobodies today. But it's
I mean, I've already seen people try to argue that with like using Tarantino. It's like, well, we still have Tarantino.
He's still around. Yeah, he's not even old yet.
No,
like just take it easy.
Make another movie.
Whatever happened to David Fincher?
Yeah,
well,
he's still doing it.
The Safdies are still here.
We still have the Safdies.
I'm almost. I don't want to speak it into existence because I don't want it to happen. I'm almost surprised someone hasn't done a modern Sunset Boulevard.
They tried it in.
Did they really?
They tried it in like the 60s.
No,
not the 60s. I'm sorry, the 70s. There's another IMDb credit.
I'm surprised there isn't one from.
Well, it's never not been relevant.
Right.
Like I mean, now it would be
maybe
it's Ingrid Goes West or something now, but like.
But it just holds up so much, especially when it comes to the business, and it's kind of sad how much the business doesn't change as much as it does.
So, any other brilliant moments we need to talk about? I mean, in terms of pure iconic moments, there's opening in the pool that we talked about, which is just a really, really great, like, here's your main character and he's dead the whole time.
We haven't talked enough about the final scene.
The final scene is what I was getting to next.
That's one of the most brilliant moments in movies.
This movie is bookended by two of the, I think, most famous and most imitated.
That staircase putting in some work.
And the way that everyone around her just buys into it.
But you said it won for best art direction, right?
Yes, it did.
Okay, because like the weird vine shape of the banister on the staircase didn't look like a staircase I'd seen before.
Yeah. You know what the thing I noticed this time when I was watching it is like when she's walking down the stairs, everybody stands still. Like everybody is like trying to hold for like a long exposure photograph except her. Like they don't move. Like even though like this fucking crazy woman who just shot this dude in her pool, right? She's like walking down and all these people are just like like standing for a painting.
Yeah.
As like she like flows past them.
But you also believe it because can you imagine if you were there, you would absolutely be trying to get that shot.
The only guy that's moving a lot is the guy that has like the lights. That's just like
but talking about how surreal this movie is, I mean, that is the most surreal moment in it.
And the fact that Max is sitting there like directing the scene. Like he's talking to the cameraman and he's telling me like, all right, we're ready for you, Norma. And
in a weird way, it's like a happy ending. Like it's not, but it's like, Norma got what she wanted, Max got what he wanted.
I mean, you think about like what other possible ending is there for it? There's the ending where they go and make her movie and she's a star again, right? But I don't want that.
No, you're right.
I mean, but in terms of other like okay outcomes, I guess we're all okay. Like Joe gets put out of his misery, and Norma gets to think that she's a star again.
And Artie doesn't get screwed, which is a character we haven't.
Artie, we have not talked about Artie.
We have not.
Let's finish up with the end scene there because like this is, I mean, it's up there with the most iconic lines in all of Hollywood. I'm ready for my close up, Mr. DeMille. Like that is. I mean, that's the line. Right?
I mean,
like I knew that line before I'd ever heard of Sunset Boulevard. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just like her face as like the camera like fades away. It's like it's so delusional. She's so like at that point she's gone. Yeah. Like there's no reasoning with her. It's just so well done.
Well, in the eye, like she's still still doing the silent movie actress performance, like top to bottom. That's one thing. There's a moment watching this movie where you start to think like, man, Gloria Swanson is really playing to the back row here. But then at some point you're like, oh, wait, no, that's Norma Desmond playing to the back row.
Oh, yeah.
And it's an incredible performance.
There's a really, and not to distract from this scene, but there's just before this scene when she's going to basically beg for Joel to stay, she like looks in the mirror and like goes into silent film star mode where her like eyes get really big and it's also terrifying. Like that's one of the horror movie things that I was like, oh my God.
Bride of Frankenstein.
That's totally what it is. It's like, no, at that point she's gone. Like it's so good.
You see, this is my life. It always will be. There's nothing else. Just us. And the cameras. And those wonderful people out there in the dark. All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
So I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, it's one of the best. We're sitting here agreeing that it's one of the best. But like, what of the movie lists would it show up on? Let's talk about movie lists for a second. So, what movies has it shown up on? To be honest, and this is to my I'll cop to it. I'm a little ashamed of this. As far as I can tell, it's only been mentioned a few times and never an outright pick on a movie list.
On CineFix movie
Now,
list?
granted, we haven't always been as fastidious with the metadata as we have been in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So there might be some older ones where it's featured, but it for sure is featured in our 100 most iconic lines of all time.
Oh yeah, it
with
has to be.
Ready for my close-up.
It should also be on another one that was recently published that I'm ashamed it's not in.
Go for it.
You tell me that this isn't one of the best screenplays ever written.
I mean, it needs to be. If it's got one of the 100 most iconic lines, somebody had to write it.
Yeah.
So
I would say that. It's such a good screenplay.
I'd have to go back and rewatch it to see. I would wait. I would just want to believe that we mentioned it, but we might not have. I don't know.
We all make mistakes.
We might not have. I don't know. This is me apologizing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think my list, the list of my lists that I think that this would be on are screenplays, Hollywood movies,
Mhm.
noirs,
Mhm.
cinematography, and femme fatales.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll take one of those one at a time. I think because I had a movies about movies kind of list.
Yeah.
I mean that you put it up there, with things like The Player, adaptation, movies about the process. The other thing that's sort of tangentially related to that is movies where, and this is hyper specific, but like movies where creative people get destroyed by their art form.
That is very
And-
that is
But
incredibly
I think there's
specific.
other examples of
Well,
that.
yeah, I
though,
mean, it's things like Black Swan and like
The
the Wrestler.
Jenks.
There you go. Here, if you say The Wrestler at the same time, you got to take a drink.
That's what
Anyway.
we're taking that forever.
Yeah. But yeah, movies about movies and movies about like creative people being destroyed. I think are
Barton
like
Fink.
a weird, a weird Barton Fink. Yeah, there you go. That's a weird niche that, as it turns out, I really enjoy.
I really like, and like the thing about like the movie about movies like list, like I feel like if you really look at this list, that list, like this movie is the most cynical. Like it really has a lot of teeth. Like it does not come across as liking the movie business at all, and I like that. Like I like that it just bites and doesn't let go.
Yeah, which is again like the fact that they made it. They were doing that already in 1950.
Yeah.
like we're not special. Like the cynical takedowns of the industry that happen. That we get. It's like there's nothing new there. Like we've been doing it since Sunset Boulevard, probably before. I just
Most consequential monkeys.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think that monkey was the inciting incident, but it was close.
I mean, listen, if that monkey didn't die on that day, Joe Gillis might still be alive, living in Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
As a failure.
As a failure, failed screenwriter and moderately not a failure of a desk jockey newspaper man or whatever.
Living failure instead of a dead himbo.
Yeah.
But we should also talk about the production design too, because like you said, like that house is a fun house, and that movie doesn't work without being in a fun house.
By the way, that house was owned by Getty's ex-wife.
Oh.
In real life.
Okay.
Paramount rented it and installed
We're
the pool.
not to the things you didn't know section just yet. So.
Okay. All right. Whoa.
Well, kudos to that production, that location manager though. It's a great location.
What was the next one on your list? There was movies about movies.
Noirs.
Hollywood. Noirs. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Right.
Film noir as a genre. I think this fits into the. I don't know. Is there a subsect of film noir that this is the best example of, or just?
No, because film noir is broad, right? Like I don't. I mean, like it's black and white and it's got crime in it.
I mean,
so,
you could do like there's the detective.
There's the hard-boiled detective.
The hard-boiled
definitely
detective
a subgenre.
stuff.
I just don't think that there's enough.
There's not 10 of them.
Yeah, there's not enough Sunset Boulevard like movies where you could be like, yeah.
There's no honorable mentions in this category. It's just Sunset Boulevard. You're right. Right.
Fucking rips, man. Fucking rips.
I wish some of like we disagreed more, but it's just a great movie. Like I'm just like,
What about Femme Fatale? Where does she stack up in
against what, Sharon Stone from Basic Instinct?
Yeah. Oh, those are both so. Would they win in a
white
fight?
female?
Yeah. I mean, she would be high in the ranking of just the film noir. I imagine film noir era femme fatales would have to be probably 2 slots in a movie list because there's so many good ones.
Yeah, for sure.
Trying to, I mean, I just keep going back to Double Indemnity because we're talking about Billy Wilder, but that's a great one. I mean, the erotic thriller genre that I feel like everybody.
Speaking of 90s genres that had a.
Anytime there's any conversation about like, what genre should come back? It's
erotic
like
thriller.
Everybody, somebody's gonna say erotic thriller.
I don't know how erotic it is to call it an erotic thriller though, because they have like no chemistry. Joe. And
Sunset Boulevard. No, I was talking about Basic Instinct.
You
know what? Why don't they bring back Sunset Boulevard as an erotic thriller?
That would
do it.
Starring Nicolas Cage
as like a May-December erotic thriller.
Dude, we're gonna you know what? I had the idea just now. I'm gonna save it for the Nicolas Cage section. I got a good pitch here.
There's not that many characters in this movie.
Yeah, but there's only one.
Okay. I think I can guess what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got one too. Yeah. But we'll say that for the end. Best VO?
What would beat it?
Taxi Driver.
Oh, yeah. But no.
I guess. I mean, they're similar in
the conversation.
They're similar in that the VO is an offshoot of the character.
Yeah.
Like it's not exposition. It's just sort of like pondering.
Sometimes I wish rain would just wash all this scum and
wash all the scum. I don't know. This Taxi Driver makes me more uncomfortable every time I talk about it.
Yeah.
It's
not the right time.
No, it's not the time for Taxi Driver.
No. But the VO in this movie is amazing. Yeah. By the way, just one thing I wanted to say. Like I watched the making of bonus features for this movie, which there is no making of footage. I don't think anybody was thinking of that stuff back in like 50.
Yeah, why would they?
Publicity stills, maybe.
Yeah.
A guy who is friends with Billy Wilder, who is featured on this documentary, was just like he said that Billy Wilder liked VO for 2 reasons. One was it was an efficient mode of exposition, so he was just like, I could get a lot of exposition out there fast. And the second was he saw himself as a satirist, and VO allowed him to comment on the action. And like,
so it's an authorial voice to him. Then it's him talking, not Joe.
Exactly.
Okay.
He just put his hand up the butt of Joe Gillis and just started flapping his mouth, flapping his gut. Do we want to talk cinematography? Is this like one of the better looking black and white photograph movies of all time?
I don't know that it's specifically a great.
Yeah, I don't think of it as like a cinematography movie.
No,
that's because it's so good.
Well, I mean, there's the idea of like you do a good job if nobody notices, kind of thing. Which it's so it was very obviously skillfully done, but in terms of like there's really some good stuff at play here. I mean, that one moment that I mentioned earlier with the stage light shining down was
that's fantastic.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Also, when he gets shot, right? Like it's all dark, but the pool is lit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the pool is like the bright thing in the frame when he falls into it, and it's like the glowing water as it like splashes up.
Well, and that's the thing. You have to see that first. That has to register because now you're thinking like, oh, here we're getting back to the beginning. Right?
Yeah, and let's not forget how they photographed that opening shot where you're looking up at Joe Gillis from the water. Right? They had to lay a mirror at the bottom of the pool, and then they shot the camera down at the mirror to get the reflection of the mirror, and that's how they got that shot. Which is
wow. I was assuming that they just had a tank.
Nope.
They didn't have tanks back then.
Nope. No, they invented the tank in 1963.
1963, 13 years after this movie, they invented the tank.
Sometimes as we watched, she'd clutch my arm or my hand, forgetting she was my employer. Just becoming a fan, excited about that actress up there on the screen. I guess I don't have to tell you who the star was. They were always her pictures. That's all she wanted to see.
Let's transition straight into things you didn't know. This is some trivia, some behind the scenes stuff that hopefully will make you think about the movie in a different way.
I only got one thing.
You got one thing?
Yeah, I got one thing. So you remember when there's this scene where, and we think of this as like really common, but they're at Norma's house watching a movie, which, you know, growing up in the advent of TV, we think, oh yeah, everybody gets to sit home and watch a movie anytime they
Even like later in the movie when he brings Betty to the house,
and he makes
he's like,
point
she's
of it.
even got a movie screen, and it's like this, it's like that size. I think.
But they roll up the painting, you know, so you could just.
It's a great setup. I gotta say,
it's really cool. Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing it.
Yeah.
So the movie that they watch is actually a Gloria Swanson silent era movie, right? That is directed by Eric von Stroheim, who plays Max.
Yep.
That's brilliant. Well, he did say that all they would do is watch her movies.
Yeah. But the fact that it was so methodically cast that it's an old Gloria Swanson movie and Max is actually directing that movie.
Yeah. That's incredible. But and so sticking with some of the casting choices and like the meta narrative of it all, Eric von Stroheim apparently didn't want to take the role, but he needed the money, and so he took it for the money, which is also hilarious. Like thinking about the meta narrative of Gloria Swanson playing Norma Desmond, where Eric von where he's taking the role that he doesn't really want, but he wants the money. And like the real world parallels that everybody has with their, I mean, except for William Holden, I guess he was a star at this point, but like, you know, the real world parallels that they have with their characters is remarkable. And to Gloria Swanson's credit, another thing you may not know is Mae West. There were a handful of other people that they went out to first before Gloria Swanson. Mae West was one of them, and a handful of them turned the role down because they didn't want to play fading starlet, because they were still like, no, I'm not going to play. Like Mae West I'm not past my prime. Mae West, she thought of herself as a sex symbol like until she died, I think. But
I mean, how old was she even when that movie
I don't
came
know,
out?
but good for her. You know, this is great. It's but the idea that Gloria Swanson was the one that was like, no, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll play down and out.
Well, I'm surprised that wasn't written for her. Like it is. So,
it seems like it was.
Right. Like
yeah. But it was nobody wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And just Gloria Swanson being like, "What have I got to lose?"
Marlon Brando also in the running for Joe Gillis.
Oh, I believe that.
Yep.
I believe that.
Wow, he had to be really young for that.
When was Streetcar? It was right around the same time.
50s, like a couple of years. Yeah,
a couple years later.
You know, this is like David Lynch's second favorite film of all time.
I believe it.
Yeah, I definitely believe that.
I 100% believe it. Yeah. I'm surprised it's not his first.
Yeah.
8.5 is his first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Depends on when you ask him.
If you Google David Lynch's favorite films, I've clicked on a couple articles. 8.5 is above it, but like Sunset is second.
I mean, that makes sense.
So much of it makes sense.
Yeah.
There's so much Sunset Boulevard and Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
It's like
well, and like Mulholland Drive too. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's anything in and around, you know, industry adjacent that has happened since 1950. Like, there's got to be hints of Sunset Boulevard in there. There's another. We talk about how iconic the opening, scene is. Originally, there's an original version, different version, where Joe's corpse arrives at the morgue surrounded by other corpses, but audiences, the way that it was played, audiences thought it was too funny, and so they swapped it to him just floating in the pool.
Yeah,
like that's it's hilarious to me that scenes that work out that are just like burned into our collective subconscious.
Yeah.
You know what else is cool about this movie?
It wasn't even it wasn't even Plan A.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. You know what else is cool about this movie too? The title card, where it's like the dun 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 dun, and like the camera just like fades down, and it's just like Sunset Boulevard written on the curb, like
Oh yeah, that is a good one.
And then like the car just like, and then it's just like.
And the car motivates like a whip pan.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning.
And then all of like the opening credits are just on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rules.
It's cool. When it came to here's one. This is from Dan, who told Tayo to compile these for us.
Yeah.
Dan gets zero credit for this.
No, this is all
did nothing,
Tayo. This is Tayo's work. But when it came time to shoot Norma's visit to Paramount, Eric von Stroheim was embarrassed to admit that he didn't know how to drive. Von Stroheim couldn't drive the car. So the stunt car, the Zara Fraschini, like, which is a car that I don't.
Way to pronounce that, bro.
Yeah. Is it wrong?
No,
How bad did I get it?
It sounds right to me.
Okay, great. They had to pull it behind a tow truck, and he only steered it just a little bit into the Paramount lot, which is funny because now that's just how they shoot car scenes.
Yeah.
Like with. and he actually crashed into the gate. I've just been whispering.
Really?
Whispered.
What's that, Dan?
What's that, Dan? Crashing the gate? No, that was Tayo again. Tayo wants to make sure I get his good work right.
All that noise! Hey,
You see, Mr. DeMille, open the gate.
Mr. DeMille is shooting. You got an appointment?
No appointment necessary. I'm bringing Norma Desmond.
Norma who?
Okay, well, let's move on to the MVP. Who's the person that makes this movie, and with somebody different, it's not the same movie?
Gloria Swanson.
Yep.
Without question.
Easy agree.
Yeah?
Easy. Like, Holden's great. But...
She was name checked for this for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
She died in the 80s.
And like we've been talking about, this like whole meta narrative just adds to it too.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's easy, Gloria. I'm so mad that she didn't win the Oscar. Now.
Yeah, it's
now that I know that.
It's unfortunate that it's not peak Wilder because he only got screenplay for this. But even then, even if this was even if Wilder took home the statue again for this is still Gloria Swanson's movie.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Wilder did so much other good work.
Yeah.
That it can kind of, not that it blends together with his other work, but you can make an argument for any one of his movies more or less being his best work.
Yeah,
right?
but even he can't be held responsible for that kind of magnetism that she brings to this performance.
And that's what I'm saying. Like anyone else, it would still be a great movie with someone else, but I don't think it would be like a capital M masterpiece without Gloria. Like I don't think it would be.
Yeah, and I also picked Gloria Swanson.
I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. This is
kind of an easy one. But the idea that she's so committed to the conceit of it and so on board with what the movie's about.
Yeah.
I don't think had Mae West said yes and she'd been kind of hedging her bets about committing to the role, then it would have been a different thing and it wouldn't have worked half as well.
And like you said earlier, you can tell when she's playing into that silent film star thing, when she's over emoting and her eyes are big and she's using her hands so much. There's
also another really cool thing in her performance where she gets vulnerable in some spots.
She totally does.
There's the moments where she is the wall is up and she's the star and she's unapproachable, and then there's the moment where she's begging Joe not to leave her. You know?
Yeah.
And they're wildly different energies.
Well, and I find it so interesting at the end when Betty comes to the house and Joe basically shows her the door, and for Norma, it's confirmation that he's essentially been kind of cheating on her, but she doesn't even care. She's like, "Thank you, Joe. Thank you for choosing me." And and you just feel again, she's not a good person, but you just feel so bad for her.
Yeah. It's such a tragic thing. And the way that this is going back to talking about the screenplay and maybe a vote for Billy Wilder in writing this. He co-wrote it with two other guys, I think. Yep. But whose names don't matter. The idea that
they won Academy Awards.
They all won Academy. Yeah, they all got the statue. Yeah. The way that the information is parsed out. And so the dramatic irony of us knowing things that Norma doesn't or that she's not aware of, and just watching her repeatedly walk into these really tragic, she's set up to fail at every turn and she's set up to be embarrassed, and it's oh God, I don't want to watch it again. Yeah. So the way that the screenplay is structured in that sense is really incredible. Yeah. So.
But it's crazy when you find out
Billy
what
Wilder
she does
+2.
know. Yeah, she doesn't realize that DeMille wants nothing to do with her, but she does realize that Joe is seeing someone else. It's because that's where her focus is right now. Her focus is on Joe, and she's obsessed with him. So she's gonna notice everything he does.
Good looking guy.
Good looking dude. Yeah.
Yeah, looks great getting out of a pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think we all agree. Gloria Swanson, MVP.
Yeah,
Congratulations, Gloria.
Belatedly.
You won our award, even if you didn't get the Oscar for it. So now, Calibro, shall we get to our final segment?
Yeah, the best segment that everybody has been waiting for. It's how would this movie be improved if it had Nicolas Cage in it in some capacity? And I think we can all agree, like every movie, it would be improved with Nicolas Cage in it. So I propose that it is, to your point, Alex, it is time to remake this film You know, I think it's relevant. I think we should take down Hollywood a couple of pegs. I also agree with you, Clint. It's time for the sex thriller to come back. So, like, why don't we reimagine Sunset Boulevard as a sex thriller with Nicolas Cage as Max, the soy?
I knew it was gonna be Max. I knew it was gonna be
He's
Max.
the perfect age.
Yeah.
He's an old ass man. You know, you just got to get a 90s heartthrob to play like Gloria Swanson right now and throw Timothy Chalamet in there as a writer, and then bam, we got us to go.
Timothy Chalamet.
We got us to go picture.
I don't know. Timothy Chalamet would be my choice.
Yeah, because you got to play with the dynamic of like Nicolas Cage and Joe Gillis. You can't have like a. I don't think you could have a traditional.
I mean, it would be Renfield. Like it would be Nicholas Hoult.
Nicholas Hoult
Would be.
Oh, you know, I see Nicholas Hoult actually.
Nicholas Hoult as Joe Gillis.
Who's Gloria Swanson?
Christy Swanson.
Or who's Norma Desmond?
No, Christy Swanson.
Who's Christy Swanson?
She's from. I guess we could do. You know who it would be if we're gonna make this the erotic thriller comeback? It needs to be Sharon Stone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Has to be.
There it is.
Nicolas Cage as Max. Sharon Stone
as Norma.
And Nicholas Hoult as Joe.
Oh, I hate that. I don't hate
holy
that.
crap! I'm into that.
I know.
I'd watch that.
Yeah.
Who's Artie?
Oh, we haven't even talked about Artie.
Yeah.
Sam Rockwell.
Too old, but right
Too
guy.
old?
Right attitude.
Sam Claflin.
Oh,
Claflin? Claflin.
Nicholas, the kid Greg from Succession.
Too many Nicholases in the movie, though. You can't have that many Nicholases on the poster.
Nick 3.
Nick 3. Yeah, that's how we'll go.
I mean, I'm trying to picture Nicolas Cage though as Max. I mean,
You'd have to reinterpret Max a little bit.
Honestly, it's who I chose. It was the same.
Yeah.
Who would you? Is there anybody else?
No, I mean, there's not. Like I said, there's not a lot of characters in this movie.
Is he Artie? Is he your Artie?
Maybe, because I don't think I like him as Max. Like, hot take, because I think that doesn't allow Nick Cage to do very much. Like, Max is eccentric, but he's very. It doesn't come out a lot.
I think it would if Nicolas Cage.
I know it would.
I was going to say, I think a scene like because we have
Max is not a character that gets slow played.
Yeah.
We have to bring something new to the film, and I think giving like Max a moment to explode on Joe Gillis is like, you know, that scene where he can like really let go and
exploring the dynamic between Joe and Max for like 10 extra minutes on screen.
Exploring Max, period, for 10 extra minutes. Like, they never go back to that reveal that he was her husband.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, the only real thing that it does, number one, in the moment, it's bananas.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing that it does for me anyway is it tempers the end scene where he's directing her and he's like still kind of shepherding her through a situation that he knows is painful.
Yeah.
And knowing that that's who he is and seeing him sort of spring into action like that.
Yeah.
It comes back there, but not explicitly.
Yeah.
Who would be your Cecil B. DeMille?
Ooh.
It would need to be like a Scorsese.
Oh, I'd go De Palma.
De Palma?
Figure you have like the new Hollywood sex pest as your... You know.
Yeah. Okay.
But DeMille isn't a bad guy in this, though.
Crony. It doesn't need to be a bad guy. It's just that, like,
but I mean, you need to do Scorsese because Sharon Stone worked with him.
Yeah. See, I like that. That's fine.
So that does the meta narrative part again.
Yeah.
So then where do we get James Woods in here?
No, you don't. James Woods is not available. Dan says James Woods is not available. That one we can thank Dan for.
I can't believe I'm saying this. I think I like that except for Nicolas Cage.
As Max?
Yeah, I think that's the only thing I don't like.
Wait,
where would you put him then?
Yes.
I wouldn't. I don't think I would.
So then who's your Max? If it's not the great if it's not the great Nick Cage.
God, who would be my Max? That's really hard.
No, it's not. It's real easy. His name's Nick Cage. You're just making it hard for yourself.
Oh, fine. I'll give you Nick Cage because I can't think of anyone better. I don't know if that makes the movie better, though.
I'm going to say that we all agreed, even though I know you didn't.
Yeah, that's fine. But it wasn't unanimous.
The prevailing wins are for Nick Cage to be Max in a remake of Sunset Boulevard. That's now an erotic thriller with Sharon Stone. And I'm going to
Nicholas Hoult.
Write that.
We got.
I
mean, if someone told me I had to put Nicolas Cage somewhere, yes, it would be Max.
Well, that's what we were doing.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the whole point of the bit.
Okay. Well, that's Sunset Boulevard. So where do you think where did you have it on your list, Calibro?
Well, I think the only reason we're doing this episode is because I had it at number 2. No, wait, let me double check that.
You don't know
Yeah,
that. You
no,
don't know where it falls on my list.
Where did it fall on your
Where
list?
did
It didn't.
I do have it as number 2.
Number 2.
Number 2. I
That's-
think that this is the second best movie of all time.
That is some Independence Day weight behind Sunset Boulevard. Dan also featured it on his list, but right near the bottom, 95.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
Dan had it at 95.
I shamed him into getting it up there.
And I didn't have it on my list either.
I'm glad I'm not alone.
Two blank spots, a number 2 and a 95. And apparently all that adds up to number 56
Wow.
on the list.
That's lower than I thought.
Somehow.
Independence Day is 15, and
No, Independence Day is my
Yeah.
15. Independence Day was where it was lower. It was like 80 something, right? 84.
8. Oh, it better be.
In the algorithm,
Yeah.
the algorithm called it
All right.
number 84.
Great.
So the algorithm is
And
much
Dan-
kinder to Sunset Boulevard, whatever that means. But
And
number
Dan math.
56.
Yeah. The thing is, like, and I said this during the Independence Day episode, I figure that there will be some movies that I watch as we do this where I'm like, oh, why didn't I have this on my list? And I didn't feel that way about Independence Day. I feel that way about Sunset Boulevard.
That is the trick with this whole process. Is like
Yeah.
I didn't rewatch 100 movies to make my list. I just
Yeah.
kind of pulled them out of my head. I cruised through. I googled some things and looked around, and it was like, oh right, no, I love that movie. And
Yeah.
but rewatching some, Sunset Boulevard, I should have put it on there. It's a great movie.
Yeah, I should have too. I regret it. Yeah.
It's going to end up on top 10 VOs.
I wonder
Just
if we.
as soon as I can get around to it.
No, we should we should get like a cheat sheet and do like a revised list at the end of this.
We
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We certainly can.
Yeah.
Episode 101
Yeah.
will be the new top 100. That'll
Yeah.
be season number 2. First season, 100 episodes. Second season, we'll do
Most
it all
seasons
again.
are 100 episodes. Yeah.
With exactly. They used to be back in the good old days.
Yeah, true.
Okay. Well, that'll do it for Sunset Boulevard. Any parting thoughts?
Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you can, leave your comment on where you think Nicolas Cage would be in Sunset Boulevard reboot.
That is an excellent CTA. And thank you for joining us again here at the CineFix Top 100. Come back next week for Parasite.
Ooh, exciting.
Best Picture winner.
Joe is a bit of a parasite himself.
Oh, there's a connection.
A connection.
What's
We
that,
already
Dan?
did it.
You're a parasite?
Oh, no. I don't know. I feel like we can go out over that.
We can cut that.
Yeah.
Cut that.
Could we?
Yeah.